What's up, everybody? I'm Rafael Velasquez. I'm with David Pereira, and this is the Direct Your Sale podcast. Now, we're at David's gym, and we're here to talk about his journey, what he's been doing, and that's what I'm doing with Direct Your Sale podcast. It's about being able to talk to like-minded individuals, taking the helm in their life, and making moves. So, David, I'd love for you to introduce yourself. Tell them a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, David Pereira, owner of FENIX, Englewood. It's a boutique personal training gym here located in the center of Englewood. We do a lot of personal training here, a lot of one-on-one stuff, and we don't operate like a normal facility. We pride ourselves on keeping the personal aspect and doing a lot of one-on-one good training. A little bit about myself, background in the military, out of high school, combat deployment under my belt, came back, was pursuing a career in the medical field. The basis was helping people, right? And I was very good at it with what I did in the military and being a medical professional. But I also saw how I had a parallel in fitness, and you can get the same kind of result and gratification of helping people, and in some ways a little bit more impactful, right? Because you get to see the ripple effect through many people's lives. So I went this route instead. I realized I was pretty good at it, and developed a good following and good clientele and good reputation. And now I'm here.
I love it.
Yeah.
So I want to dive right into it. And you mentioned when you were in the medical field, was it when you started, or were you already a couple months in, a year in, where you were like, I want to switch and take that transition?
Yeah, so like if anybody is ever, if you're a science major in any college, you understand like the workflow, and it's like all these science-based classes plus labs, so you're like working more than the normal student technically. And with that, you can't really work outside of school. It's very hard to find like a flexible enough job and be a science major. I was a bio major. And what allowed me to do that was fitness, right? Like you can train clients here and there, or you can go coach a class here and there, and it can be flexible in between your schedule. So in seeing that and in doing that out of sheer need, because I loved fitness, it turned into more of a passion, like more of a puzzle, dealing with people on a one-on-one basis and solving their problems. So it was more in turn of like, I was probably like halfway through, honestly, and getting ready to apply to PA school, physician assistant school, and really vetting all my options. And I was just like, I might as well go all in with fitness and this realm. My backup plan, although I don't like to say I have a backup plan, was like, all right, if I fail at this or if it doesn't work out to what I expect, then I'm still enlisted. I can still go full-time active duty and take the medical route full speed ahead. So because that was there, it allowed me to go all in on fitness and myself as a business owner and as a personal trainer.
And what's interesting is that you have such a strong foundation and something that you could have landed on with the the military and going back into the medical. So what's interesting is, if I was to talk to this with somebody else about them at that turning point, mm-hmm. they may have a different answer. But for you, you had your years with the military, so you kind of were able to say, all right, these are my options, mm-hmm. and have discernment, because I'm guessing with the military, you got to go full-fledged forward.
Well, the thing is, like, a lot of people who know me by now just would say probably that I take risks. I'm a risk taker. In part of me going to the military, in part of me volunteering to deploy, those are continuous risks that I continue to take. Some have different, consequences, right?
Different levels,
right? Opening a business, can you default? Maybe, yeah. Volunteering for war, can you not come back? Yeah, right? So those are different levels of risk. But I would like to think in my own head and on my personal experience that I've taken one of the most ultimate risks, right? Volunteering, raising my hand to go to war, and then coming back from that. So the way I saw it was, well, what can get me now, right? Not that I'm invincible, but I've learned a lot through my experience. I learned a lot through what the military has taught me. If I can plan, if I can educate myself, and if I can do that to the best of my ability, chances are I can minimize those risks, right? And so far, so good. I've been able to minimize some of those risks. So I didn't see it necessarily as, I'm just going to go all in, and I was blindly going in. But I used a little bit of the principles that the military has taught you. Definitely plan. definitely educate, definitely understand your space and what you're doing. Don't just shoot from the hip is what an experience.
For sure.
Yeah,
You're a guy that you've been in the industry for what, 10, 12
yeah,
years now?
11 years, 12 years at this point. It started off as like, a hobby, like every athlete in school. Like you just want to work out, you want to be better, you want to be stronger. For me, it was always performance. It wasn't always aesthetics. I was a wrestler and a football player, but understanding that the better I got at fitness, the better performance I could have in both those sports and avenues of sports. The aesthetics was just a byproduct, right? Having a six-pack or just being like well-conditioned over time, like those things were just a byproduct of how much work you actually put in. But yeah, I mean, so coming out of it, I always had like this, like it was a safe space for me because I developed this can-do attitude from it. I can do it every day kind of thing. So it built up kind of like a certain level of resilience and knowing that I can continue to do it, and that was good.
It's like you have this warrior presence about you. It's something that I just kind of picked up,
Yeah.
and I'm not just saying that to say it, just to randomly say it. It's
Yeah.
more so you put your work in and it's about a way of life for you with fitness, with, everything that you do. And that's one thing I admire and respect about you. So
Yeah.
that's something that I got to give kudos to you in general because I pick up a lot of things about you with your organization, your structure. Even when we met through that WeWorks event that we did.
Yeah.
The way you went about that, I'm like, damn, okay.
Yeah.
I got to pick up I got to learn and see what he's doing well and use that to better me.
Yeah, I'm a big organization nut. I mean, some people like to dub the term OCD, but it's not that. It's just like if you are blindly doing something, you're not going to learn what you can improve upon if you want to do it again, right? So the fact of like planning and organizing is just a thing that helps keep my mind at peace as best I can. The whole fitness aspect, I tell my clients all the time, what fitness is the most controlled stress that you'll ever face in life, right? Right? Like your workouts may seem tough, but it's controlled. They may seem like you're gonna die, but it's controlled, right? And how you, I guess, kind of act, right? And how you kind of respond is directly parallel to how you would respond for unknown stress in life, right? Like, whether it's sickness, whether it's, financial or something like that, like how well are you sharpening your sword when it comes to fitness? How well are you adding to that stress bank account while you're, actually doing it? Some people just go through the motions. Some people show up and just work out and like, cool. But they don't understand like deeper than that. It's like my response to stress, right? And then, when something actually happens in life and people get out of whack and they get frazzled, it's like, you can just put those two pieces together and you can be like, okay, well, you half-ass your workouts. No wonder why, like, this tail light being out got you all messed up or something, or this cop pulling you over got you all stressed out. Like it's like, stuff like that. And I just try and make that connection across the board because the biggest thing is like perspective, right? If you have a frame of reference and you have a deep perspective on things, it can help you more so than you think, and without actually having to be so reactive to a lot of your environment, right?
You're going to make better decisions. You are basing things off of something you've already done. And that's what I like to tell my clients too. It's like, the reason we're doing certain exercises, which may not be working towards you getting bigger biceps or like the goals that you told me, is so that if you were to walk on the street and you miss a step, you would now have the balance to catch yourself because you practiced it in a environment. And I feel like that's the thing. People don't really sometimes that connection of, okay, cool, physically I'm gonna look good. That's a byproduct like you mentioned before, but the big picture is I'm gonna be ready for whatever environment goes on because we're living in a world with other beings, other things, and variables coming at us.
Yeah, and that's key. Like it's like, and this is not something that you can do ever so often. You have to do it consistently, and the more consistently you do it, the better you get. The more of the hedge you build against, not only just sickness and all that poor health stuff that we obviously want to avoid, but also your response, to certain things.
For sure.
So that's the biggest thing, just diving in a little bit of like the hedge that you build against, I guess, sickness, let's call it, and all that other stuff. Like imagine if, clients, I keep telling them about consistency, right? Imagine if you weren't able to work out, right? Say you got injured, right? Like your consistency over that time, like how much did you build up that hedge in that bank account is going to help you in that 1 month, 2 months that you need to take off. Whereas,
100%.
Whereas if you were like, not barely like doing it, maybe hitting 2 workouts a week or something like that, just barely getting by, and then you had to take off a month or 2 because of, you know, family emergency or, you know, something like this or whatever the case may be, you're shit out of luck, right? Like you are in a deeper hole, right? You're almost like your account's overdrawn.
You're over here digging a bigger hole. You're like,
yeah,
I didn't even bring the ladder.
Yeah,
Fuck.
yeah, your account's overdrawn at that point, right? So it's how well do you communicate these things to clients and put it in a perspective that they understand. So those 2 things is one of my biggest go-tos, right? The consistency aspect and then the response to stress.
And that's one thing I've seen, just to go on to the side of just when somebody's injured and working out.
Mm-hmm.
When I started up, I was an intern at a gym called Rockland Peak Performance.
Mm-hmm.
So we worked with baseball players, hockey players, some
Mm-hmm.
Gen Pop. And it was very interesting because let's say a client had messed up their ankle. They would still come in, but they would work on the rest of the body.
Yeah.
So let's say that leg would still get some benefit for just moving around. We weren't putting it in situations where it would get hurt,
Mm-hmm.
but you could still train around that.
Yeah.
You know, how do you feel about that?
No, that's key. That was in part of you know, our decision, FENIX as a brand, to bring in our own physical therapist, but
Amazing.
not from like a rehab standpoint, but from a performance standpoint, right? Again, like how can we bulletproof your body in a way that keeps you training for longer, as opposed to like so reactive to every injury that you get that you don't see the next one coming. So we have a good physical therapist on our team, and we seem to jive on a lot of good ideas about how important that role is to like make sure you resist injury, you know, in the future, right? And how do you?
It's like an accountant for a business.
Exactly. It's like budgeting, man. Like you need to set some time aside to work on these. You know, this bad hip isn't genetic. You know, it may be, but very few people actually suffer from that, right? Like your bad hip is due to poor ankle or poor posture or like a lot of different things that people don't realize.
Sitting for hours,
Especially
right? With this whole scenario being at home.
Right, and then they become very reactive to everything. Like, you know, a client comes in, they're like, you know, my knee's been bothering me, right? Or it just started hurting, right? And then I'm like, all right, well, what'd you do? And they're like, well, it wasn't hurting last week, so it had to be something that we did in the workout. And I'm like, well, chances are it wasn't. And they're like, nah, it had to be, because it wasn't hurting last week.
Because I'm here 2 hours out of 168 hours in a week. It obviously was here.
Well, no, you know, and then I give them the analogy, like, you know, you go to a bar and then you take 20 shots and then you drink 1 beer and you pass out after that beer. Like, what put you on the ass, or on your ass? Not the beer, the 20 shots you took before, right?
Which can be anything from just walking wrong, walking on
Yeah.
unstable surfaces, loading muscles
1000%,
improperly.
right? Like, you know, women wearing like heels for a prolonged period of time, not understanding like the imbalances that cause, you know, being, you know, wearing just poor shoes. Like you can't wear Yeezys all the time for every workout. It looks cool, right? It looks cool, but it's not something that's going to help you long term. And then next thing you know, you show up with an injury and you're like, but it wasn't like this last week. Well, what about the 6 months? What about the 6 months you've been, you know, doing X, Y, Z, right? So that's something that we definitely find important here, right? Keeping people training for longer, and then also at certain levels of performance in which they didn't know they had, once you optimize other injuries that they could have prevented, right? And that's like one of the strong things that we feel needs to change in this market, right? The integrity of workouts have been severely diluted because people want to create intense workouts. People want to beat the shit out of clients. Like, I get that. There's a time and a place for all of that, but
I think sorry for interrupting, but I feel like the understanding of what intensity is,
mm-hmm.
is what is, there's a disconnect there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, an exercise can be intense depending on what the given parameters are. It doesn't mean that I'm going to exhaust the body where now my adrenals are fatigued and I'm going to be shot for another 2 weeks. It can be, okay, cool, our goal is to keep you at a 7 and 8 intensity for the specific exercise. We're going to do this 1 to 2 times, and then we're going to move on to work on a different component of fitness.
Yeah,
you know?
1000%. Like, and that all falls back from, it's a conversation. It's a connection between you and your client, right, or your clients. They have a certain idea and perception of what their goals are, and then you, as a professional and a subject matter expert, you were supposed to meet them halfway, set their expectations accordingly, but also know what's best for them, because if it's left up to their own vices, they wouldn't know what to do anyways, right? So those intense workouts, though it may get them some kind of stimulus of feeling fulfilled and getting those endorphins pumped, is that aligned with their long-term goal?
That 30,000-foot view
Exactly.
and of everything going on.
1,000%, right? It has to be aligned with their long-term goal. And yeah, intensity it can be a very good substrate to getting to the goal, but there has to be a goal after that goal, right? So you can't just hurry up and get there, right? The idea is to stretch it out so this way they know how they got there. And two, it's just understanding that, like, what's going to be better for this client long term, right? You should always think that you want to train a client so they don't need you anymore. Although the personal aspect and the relationship keeps them there, the level in which you want them to get to fitness wise or nutrition wise should be something that you want to give them all your tools. You want to give them all the things that they need resources wise, so this way they're fully equipped to be an individual and be self-sufficient. I feel like that's not there. People are like, let me just beat the shit out of people.
It's interesting because it's a whole system. We have to say that it comes down from everybody involved in this whole world of the fitness industry. So the conversations need to be had. Like, okay, we're here as guides. I don't think I was on an Instagram live yesterday with my friend Omar, and at the end I told everybody, listen, I'm a guide. Like, don't think that I'm like everything I'm saying is right. Ask questions, because then this is how we're gonna learn from one another and grow.
1,000%.
But when it's like, okay, no, I'm right, when does this turn into becoming a dictator? You know?
There's a lot of dogmatic approaches and ideas and ideologies about fitness and what's the best thing. But there's no best thing. There's just best practices that fluctuate based on the goal that the person has, right? Like
you mentioned before, the toolbox. All right, okay, cool, I need a hammer for this.
Yeah.
Let me go use the hammer.
Yep. And it's like, exactly, the toolbox, right? And you want to equip them in a way, because that's when the fun part starts. Like, that's when people are like, oh, I like training like fit people, or I like training athletes. Well, because they have a certain level of knowledge about how to move, intensity. They've done movements before at a higher load and capacity. So the idea is that it is fun because they know, right? So the basis
there's less to do.
Exactly, right? So the idea is, like, it will get fun if you teach people what to know. And if you're just not good at that, well, then that's a different conversation. As a trainer and as a coach, like, we have to get you better at giving information, right? Giving information that sticks to a client, not necessarily giving them the answer all the time, but giving them a why and a how, right? And in this way, they're like, oh, okay, now I know when to use the hammer, not like, just whatever and just going after it. But
that makes it for better conversations, for just a better community, and then it would go with what you're building here at FENIX.
Yeah, I definitely think people will. I mean, listen, you can't fight that argument that knowing a little bit more and knowing at higher level things is beneficial. Like, if you broke it down to the micro level and you asked any trainer or coach, do you want to teach that same person how to squat every time you see them? The answer is no. I want you to eventually learn how to squat. So that's no different when you want to stretch out, all the other workouts and all the other, movements and exercises that you want to get somebody to learn, or fitness stuff and nutrition stuff that you want to get somebody to learn. You got to teach them the basics in a way that you don't have to reteach it every time, right? And yes, that does build the relationship. That does build the rapport that's deeper, because now you've taught me something that I can keep. I can keep for the rest of my life. Now it's invaluable, right? And now I owe you in a way, right? Or not physically, but like, they're just like, okay, like, that relationship, that adds value to that relationship. And
it makes the bond stronger,
Definitely. And that's step one. That's step one. You have to have a bond. You have to have a relationship and a rapport
over something, anything.
But it doesn't mask all, right? Like, you can obviously just be a shitty communicator, but just give good workouts, and people are like, all right, well, I'll just go for the workouts, right? That's not good. And you can't just be, good at communicating, but your workouts give nobody results, right? So you got to be somewhere in between and really push yourself to be better. But yeah, those are two things that we definitely think that matter. That if anybody's out there looking for a trainer or looking for a coach, like, obviously,
you heard it here first.
Yeah, how well do they communicate, and how well of the results that they get that you're looking for.
And how would you take having compassion for, an individual doing an exercise where they're getting frustrated with or not being able to do, what are some tactics that you do for that?
Yeah, so this is in part of being a better coach, right? Because you have to have that emotional intelligence and that awareness that this person's really struggling to the point where it'll have a negative or adverse effect. So like
either if it's physical, mental,
physical
emotional,
or
whatever.
mental, right? Like some people, some of your best athletes show up, their head cases, they show up and their head's not in it, and then you can keep demanding more from them, like they're going to implode or they're going to poorly perform.
You're gonna lose them.
Exactly, right? And instead of them have like a good, 100% of what they have to give that day, you've now put them in the hole, right? Because either you spoke negatively or you judged them and over critique them or so on and so forth. Now you lost, kind of that day, So how do I go about it? I mean, there's definitely an emotional intelligence thing. That is an actual thing. Like you definitely have to have the EQ to pick up on someone's struggle. But then there's the other side of like, all right, well, what do I do, right? Because there's times where, I'm sure coaches or instructors see people struggling, right? They see it. Right?
For sure.
Like that's not how you would perform a squat. That's not how you would perform a push-up. But you see this person struggling, but you yourself don't know how to go over there and either coach it on the fly, fix it on the fly, or talk them off of that ledge if they're mentally struggling. Like, how do I get them back down? They'll just let it go, right? And that's not a good standard to have. You can't hold yourself to these high standards when you want to or when it's easier.
That goes back to consistency of showing up day in, day out.
Yeah,
you can't say,
1,000%.
Nah, and then you just go go eat a burger or something,
Yeah, no, I hear you, man. It's definitely that's where the puzzle and the excitement is. Like dealing with, although it can be exhausting. Like, but dealing with 20 and 30 different personalities on a very personal level every day.
It's fun.
It's because each person is a puzzle. Each person you want to empathize with. Each person has a problem that you want to solve, and they obviously pay you for a problem that they need a solution to, right? Which is why they come here, right? And that's where you should be excited about like what it is that you're doing and how well you solve that problem. If you're a critical thinker, can you think on your feet to coach? Like those are like the exciting portions of it. When you see it as just another session, or this person complains, or this person doesn't really know how to do anything, like then that's when you've already lost the battle before it's even started, right? You look at your schedule and you say, this person's coming in, and you're like, you already lost the mental battle.
The attitude is definitely in the wrong spot.
It's like, listen, I have complainers. I have people who can't perform at levels in which I would want them to, but the beauty of it is just like challenging yourself to not only be positive, but see how you can impact that person that day, right? Like, so person can't perform to a certain level or expectation. All right, can you teach them something else, right? That they will be like, oh, wow, I did that.
Like, I feel like, thank you, that was amazing.
That may cause the ripple effect for them to eventually perform how you want them to perform, or perform the movement that you want them to perform, and so on and so forth. Same thing from the mental aspect. Like, is this person down? Can I empathize and react accordingly to the point where they feel good about something, and it's the best half hour of their day, the hour of their day. Now the wrath of the next of the day isn't negative. It's more positive because they've done something and they've left on a more positive note, right? So that's like where I'm like excited about it, right? Sure, I start at 5 a.m. and I can go, super long into the morning without a break. There's like, thank God for coffee, you know what I mean?
And that's the name of the game, Every business is going to have their thing where you're like, you know what? This is just a part of it. There's nothing around that.
Yeah, and it is definitely a part of it. Obviously, like any other field and any other, career choice that someone would make, you definitely have to have a balance. You have to know when you're spreading yourself thin. But that's on an individual thing. Like no one can tell you that unless your performance starts to drop, and someone has to, you force someone's hand to tell you that. But yeah, I mean that is a thing, right? Every job or every high functioning position will come with a risk reward factor to it, and you have to be the individual to hold yourself accountable to balance that accordingly.
And how have you been taking the next steps for you and your business? Because for you, you're growing into this business owner. I know you have dreams of going worldwide, where now going into the community, you're thinking about the the attendees, your clients. You're also thinking about how to empower trainers, how to work with other gym owners. You know, I see you making the moves.
Yeah.
How is it that you show up daily to be able to be in that right space to continue with your ultimate why, which is helping people? You know?
Yeah, I think it has to align with your overall goal, right? Like, so if my goal was to, I mean, sure, I had a short-term goal to get this place up and open and running, right? That was a short-term goal.
Which you did, and
Yeah,
congrats.
Thank you. And I feel like God has blessed me with like this incubation period of like me catching back up now, because like he's like, all right, you got it open, but close your doors and catch up, right? How do I come back and continue to do that? Is because my long-term goal is to help, right, and help as many people as I can in as many ways as I can, right? So I understand. I think I wouldn't say a different platform, but just because of my military experience, let's call it, anybody who's been on a team, you understand how you need other people to get to what you want in terms of, that self position or a championship or whatever the case may be. So like being in the military, I understand the impact of working together, right? It's
For
very,
sure.
very few things, professions, careers where you're like, actually, I'll do better if I work by myself.
Honestly, I don't think there's one single thing.
I know, but
it doesn't matter.
But
Yeah.
unless you're like trying to come up with some invention, like you can come up with in your grandma's basement, like you can come up with a good amount of it with an idea.
That's a good point.
Right? And unless you're like this amazing coder and you come up with an app all by yourself, at some point, if you want to take it bigger, then you need more people. So why not bring more people in at, ground level to help catapult that idea and that vision, right? So for me, that's what it is. It's like, all right, my idea is to help. And I'm like, okay, well, how many people can I get involved in this idea, right? Or on this task or whatever the case may be. So for me, it's to constantly do that. And when you think about like more people, how can I get more people involved? Then I think about like, that's where creativity sparks, because you're like, okay, how can I use this person? How can I help this person? How can I get this person on board? Like, how can I even change this person's mind or perception about whatever it is that we're attempting to do? Like that's where the creativity comes in, is because like if you thought about by yourself, then you're like, well, how do I achieve anything? Like it's not very many creative
100%.
activities that you can do by yourself to stimulate growth and a following and lead a team and so on and so forth. So for me, I'm like, all the tasks that I think I have to do, I'm like, okay, human involvement, human interaction. Who am I helping here, right? And that's the beauty behind it. That's my goal. So for anyone else who's doing that, you have to think about what's your short-term goal. Obviously, have that, and whatever your long-term play is. For your business, let's call it, if you're opening up a salon, or if you're opening up whatever, or you're starting your own business. Like, what's your long-term play? And you have to work backwards off of that, almost reverse engineer your goals, right?
Step by step.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be so formulated like that you put these deadlines on it. Like I don't think I've actually put, I started making goals, more consistently over the past 6-7 years, but I don't think I've actually put deadlines. Like I haven't put June 15th on a paper and a goal attached to it.
Life happens, man, and then when it does, it's either you have to take care of it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I definitely think there's like, there's this what's called Parkinson's principle, or Parkinsons Law, right? Like your work confides to the time that you give it, right? So like, when you're in high school and you have 2 months to do your essay, when do you wait till?
The day before.
Day before.
Every
right?
time.
Right? Because you only gave it a day before, right? So like, I feel like if you do give it deadlines, then like you're gonna end up waiting no matter what, right?
And you take consistent action and just amplify
but if I'm like constantly reminded, like get it done, but not only just get it done, I wrote those steps to reverse engineer how I'm gonna get there. Well, then it just becomes like checks in the box, right? And then slowly but surely, you'll actually probably get there sooner than you think, or sooner than the deadline that you set forth to yourself. You don't know how. If it's a goal, chances are you never achieved it. So how the hell are you going to put a date on it, right? It sounds good, right?
In theory,
in theory,
amazing.
like if it's financial and you're like, all right, I want to save $10,000, I get paid $2,000 a week, and it's going to take, okay, maybe. But then again, like life happens, and then you got to replace like
a tire.
You got to replace a tire, like, or you got to lend somebody some money, and you're like, just shot yourself in the foot. Now what do? Throw that goal out the window? No, you don't throw it out.
It keeps on going.
It keeps on going, right? So for me, it's like I have to make sure that everything aligns to my goal. I want to make sure that people understand that every task that they do, they definitely want to attach to whatever their long-term play is. You know, if you're opening up a business, not that you have to, cool, you got it done, what's next, right? If you have people that depend upon you, then you have to think creatively, you have to think outwardly and forwardly. You know, I've just seen, well, one of my mentors just told me, like, you know, in terms of like you having a business and you opening up, you have to think about going into that business with the potential to sell your business, right?
Every time, yeah.
So if you have that understanding, you can't sell somebody something that's broken. You can't sell somebody something that's not organized. You can't sell somebody that's something that's like, you know, has a stigma attached to it. Like,
it can be duplicated.
Yeah. Like you have to sell somebody something that's of value, right? And that's the way I see it. It's like, okay, like not that I'm selling off my clients anytime soon, but the idea is like if I want to start this business, all right, well, how do I make my way out? Or how do I build upon it in a way in which somebody wants to come in and help grow it, right? So that's kind of where my thought is, like any business owner who's going this route, anybody who's considering doing something entrepreneurial, you have to think about your out and your goal, like, and your long-term goal, and work backwards off of that.
It goes with the notion that, you know, entrepreneurs don't work a 9 to 5 because they don't like their job. They don't like to work for the man. So we're building to be able to share to the world and then say, hey, here, keep on going. Because I find that's beauty for me, where I can, let's say I was to throw a party. I'm gonna be happy seeing people to coming together. And I can sit and chill in the background and I'm happy. I'm like, you know, I got good people together. I'm able to help leave something for others.
Yeah, so like, you know, it's interesting. Like I firmly believe that entrepreneurs make horrible employees, right? Because of that.
I had to leave.
Right? But it's interesting because I didn't see myself as that. Believe it or not, I was never fired from a job that I've had. Like I was actually, I like to think a good employee, and I definitely overarched. Like I was an overachiever in what I did.
That's why they would never fire you, because they're like, wow, this guy has everything that we would want and more.
Well, it's because like, you know what it is? It's because I have like strategic laziness, right? Like you get into a job and you get into a position, it's like, what's the easiest way I can get this done?
I got
without compromising necessarily like what needs to be done, right? Like the form, let's call it, or the consistency or something like that. Like what's the easiest, most efficient way, right? So it's strategic laziness, right? It's like as much as anal as somebody might have been about a task that needs to be done, there's chances are a better way or an easier way to get things done without complicating it, right?
You must have been a whiz at that.
Well, so I would just implement my own mental and internal systems. Like I know when I'm going to do this, I know how much time I'm going to allot for that, and I know when this is going to happen. Like I'm just very aware.
So now that goes with Parkinson's Law. You know, you're understanding, all right, cool. If I want to be able to have this much time to be free to, one, be able to make my money that I need, be able to take care of the people I'm working with, I'm going to focus on this task for this amount of time.
No, 1,000%. Yeah. And once you get a good overall view of the landscape of what needs to be done, let's call it an employee job, and you got the handbook and you see what your daily duties are, it's like, all right, well, how do I refine this? Because, like,
I love that.
Because like they say, I don't know the exact percentage, but they're like, anybody at like a 9 to 5 is really working like, I think half that time. The other half of the time is filled with walking back and forth, doing, you know, non-work essential things, like, so
Instagram,
not
TikToking
that I'm here to, you know, work a 9 to 5 and be all, you know, efficiency for 8 hours, but it's like, well, the tasks that usually take the longest, or those things that people will see as like monotonous, like those things can definitely have a streamline to it, right? Or you can actually be that person that streamlines it or brings in new systems. You just have to want to do that. Right?
For sure. And then you want to do that for somebody who's going to make the bottom line, when you're just going to look at them make the bottom line, which kind of shows that you've just been an entrepreneur your whole life. And you're like, I'd rather take on the risk and see the bottom line. That's how I see it.
Yeah, that is true. I definitely think I had a like ask for forgiveness mentality when it came to like having jobs though too. Like, you know, I'd implement my own systems. I'd figure some other things out that we could be doing. And then if it came up in a negative way, I would, like, instead of slow down and be like, do I have the permission to do this every time I want to do something? I think I would have made somebody crazy, you know, or my job or my employer crazy. So I definitely had like a ask for forgiveness should it go south.
I get it. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, I completely forgot. I'm so sorry. And
Yeah,
then you
no.
kind of go about it.
Yeah, no, 1,000%. And listen, it's worked out thus far. So it's a good mindset to have, I guess.
So where do you see Phoenix going? What are your dreams? What's the vision?
Yeah. So I see Phoenix as a brand. It's more of a lifestyle brand. Now that sounds very like sexy to say, but what I mean by that is like I want it to have a certain name. Like you have a certain understanding of what it means to go to a Phoenix gym. Like a Phoenix gym does not have to have like bells and whistles. It doesn't have to have, you know, Olympic-sized swimming pool. Like what it does, it gets results. It has very good trainers and it has a high standard of training and a high understanding of nutrition. But more importantly, it puts the trainer in a position to be a better business person for themselves, right? So if it's a 3-series approach of nutrition, fitness, and business, and if you have a more, let's call it, educated, higher standard trainer, chances are you have a very high threshold for the atmosphere, right? The people that you attract, the clients that you attract, and then in having that, like you keep a lot of people in here overlapping. And what I mean by that is like you're all ready to get after it, right? You're all like alphas, let's call it. Like you're all of the same caliber, cut from the same cloth, and that is like the idea of where I see Phoenix. And big picture, I want to re-incentivize the trainer, right? I want them to be their own business person. I want them to understand like the entrepreneurial side. Like you are your you are your biggest advertisement. You are, you know, your biggest marketer. How can we prepare you guys as trainers who are on the front lines dealing with clients better for managing and running your own business, right? And being better and well educated to communicate to clients, right? And it doesn't need to be this model that necessarily has to open 100 locations. Let's actually open up a few and just do it very well, right? That ripple effect is much more impactful, I think, than saying let's like throw shit at the wall, open up 100 locations, drown ourselves in debt just for the clout of having all those locations.
Quality over quantity.
1,000%, because we've been able to find a model and find a good team that have been able to sustain a high flow, a high frequency of training sessions, continuously do that and pull from let's call it a demographic that is saturated. Like we're literally right next to a gym and we are in the 2-mile radius of 6 gyms. Like,
oh, I didn't even know that was that much.
Yeah, 6 gyms. So like what's making us stand out? We don't have anything really fancy here. You know, everything smells new, but we don't have anything fancy here.
It's a beautiful smell.
Yeah, it's a beautiful smell. We don't have anything fancy here. We just get it done, and we know how to communicate to our clients in a different way. I wouldn't say better, because we're all in this together. What I can't, provide somebody, I'm sure somebody next door can maybe provide, right? And if I know that I can't, then I'm willing to outsource that. However, I don't think that's reciprocated in the opposite way, right? Somebody who is not able to deal or deliver on something, are they going to tell that to a client? Are they going to be, upfront about that, right?
I feel like it's about that abundance mindset, because it's like you're looking at the interest of the individual as a being, not okay, cool. I need this person to help me make money. When you look at it from that perspective, we're missing out on the whole bigger picture of this experience that we're all sharing.
Yeah, so I had I think it was last year, I was very condensed. I couldn't take people in my morning, and I had 2 or 3 people who wanted to train with me, and based on their goals, so they had some let's call it athletic goals for things that they were training for, Ironman and all that stuff, and I outsourced them. I gave them to another coach that I know can fulfill their need. You
gotta let me know about that guy. I got a person that I do not know who to send to because of this reason.
Yeah, I got you. But after that, then they met with that coach, and then they decided to go ahead and pursue it. And then they loved the training, and I knew that they would, but I knew that I couldn't because of the time in my schedule, time constraints in which I didn't have, that I did have. and they reached out to me, and not only did they reach out to me and thank me, but they sent me another client. Like they sent me a
Beautiful.
client that wasn't necessarily having the same goals, obviously, because they knew I couldn't just take them for that. But you know, they sent me like a family member, like who's in my afternoon, and so on and so forth. Like that's the reason why you tell somebody that, like, the truth, like, oh, I don't have either the time for you just yet, or I can't fulfill, you know, whatever it is that you're looking for, or give you a solution to your problem. So I couldn't do that, and you got to be honest. And you know, it pays off, and it may seem like, I'm losing out on this money, but what are you actually willing to gain, you know, from it?
And that is just so short term, because if you're thinking about, all right, I'm losing out on this money, that was one interaction.
Yeah.
You can literally turn around and see more people, or
Yeah.
just figure out what to do next. So
Yeah.
that's also another thing, just in our industry, especially in schools. Yeah, I'm calling out schools. In colleges, they're just not teaching exercise physiologists business. That alone is a huge detriment. Huge.
Yeah, I wish I would have known more about business, you know, coming out of school, but part of self-educating, part of surrounding yourself with, like, the right people who are, you know, alphas in this field, or people who really do this day in, day out. That's the exciting part, to be able to learn and pick up. You know, it's almost like that learning curve you had when you started working out, right? You started to see results, and you started to do it. You're like, I got it. So that's where I'm at. I'm starting to pick up a lot more on different things, and I don't even begin to know where you know, exercise physiologists would learn business about, you know, coming out of school. But I think it's important that any field learns more about business coming out of their field.
It's an artwork.
Right?
It's a way of speaking.
Especially if you're taking out, like, loans, right? The bank should be like, hey, you need to take a business class so you know how fast you can pay us back.
He's like, you want 20 grand? You want 100K? Oh, okay, cool. Go take a course. This is a part of it.
Yeah.
That would be a lot smarter,
Yeah.
honestly. If banks want to start to see their money coming back, how about you invest it to the people so that they can learn something?
Or they should be the institution that offers that. Hey, you also need to take this course, right? I need to make sure
That's
that
amazing.
you're better, right? Going into the work field and workforce. So, I mean, listen, I'm gonna dub that. I'm gonna write down that idea. I'm gonna talk to all my people.
You should. That's actually a really good idea.
No, but it makes sense, right? And it's something so simple that makes sense. And I mean, listen, it's like, who's gonna do it first? And I definitely think if somebody does it first, then people will catch on.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, man, it's
Well,
good.
I know you got to get ready for our live. So, David, anything you want to leave the people with? How can they follow you? How can they stay in touch?
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram at David Pereira Fitness. So I'm sure you'll do your thing and just.
Yeah, I'm gonna
the
put that
graphic
all
there.
in the.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put
David
everything in the end of the video.
Yeah, David Pereira Fitness on Instagram. FENIX Englewood on Instagram to follow us there. And that's basically it, man.
That's awesome. I would dap you, like hug you,
No,
but I know we gotta stay quarantined. This is not 6 feet at all.
Not
but
6 feet. It's
we're
all right.
talking laterally. So
Put it
we're
on
good.
that fisheye lens. You know, maybe we look 6 feet
Ooh,
apart.
but that may just screw up and fuck up the whole video.
It's
So
all right. It's
I'm
all
gonna try it out though.
I
All right,
appreciate
David.
it.
Thank you, brother.
Thanks.
Working overtime till it gotta pay. I've been on my grind, feel like every day. Put it on the line right there on the stage. Going so hard, I won't ever slow the wave. They tell me keep my head up, get down, you gon' get up. Ask me if I let up, not today. Cause even if I fail.
What's up, everybody? Thank you for watching Direct Yourself podcast and or listening, depending where you're at. So make sure to subscribe. Stay tuned for more amazing stories, more amazing adventures. Keep leading the way.